Now, for more on the problem of poaching, Susan Lieberman joins us of the Wildlife Conservation Society. She's the Executive Director of Conservation Policy. We've had a chance to talk about this before on this broadcast.
Right.
And one advocate for this issue says that that seems to be all anyone's doing. Too much talk, not enough action. Would you agree?
Well, I think that was the Secretary General of the CITES Convention. He's right that we need action. I don't think there's been too much talk, but the talk needs to be accompanied by action. There is a poaching crisis for elephants, for rhinos, and many other species, but particularly elephants across Africa. We're seeing populations reduced by 70, 80, 90%. There needs to be action in Africa and also in the importing countries.
Now, some of these countries that are involved have come up with action plans. On paper, how does it look? And sometimes people put things on paper, but the plans, that's what they become. It's just plans to be done in the future. I mean, are we seeing action?
We are seeing action. We are seeing improvement. The countries that are most implicated in the illegal ivory trade have been required to produce these plans. There's a meeting in 2 weeks in Geneva of the CITES Standing Committee, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, and these countries have to show the global community not only that they have an action plan, but they're doing something about it. Frankly speaking, some are doing a lot more than others, and there needs to be some pressure on those who are just not doing enough.
We're hearing from some, and in fact, that was just in our report, that some are actually threatened with extinction, some of these elephants. So I would think if you're in your field, it can be depressing at times. So where are the depressing areas? Where do you see hope?
Well, it can be depressing, but what keeps me going is I feel that we can make a difference. We can turn this around. We turned it around in the late 80s. Poaching was out of control. The ivory trade was banned. But economically, things have changed, and people are doing great in China right now. I'm thrilled with that, and I'd like them to spend their money on a whole lot else other than ivory and endangered species products. There's also rapidly increasing, unfortunately, corruption and trafficking going on across Africa. It's depressing across Central Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, to see this large-scale poaching, trafficking, and involvement of organized crime, which is much worse than we've seen ever before. But I think action can be taken. Governments are now coming together and saying, this isn't some minor crime. This is transnational organized crime up there, operated by syndicates who are also involved in drug trafficking and human trafficking. We can crack down on it. Here in the United States, we're looking at legislation to stop any domestic sale of ivory, even if people claim it was imported legally. China needs to do the same. China is cracking down on enforcement, no question about that. China needs to do more, and more needs to be done to put pressure on other countries as well to act. I think there is hope, and we can turn this around.
You said transnational organized crime. You also mentioned drug trafficking, human trafficking. There's been some who say maybe going after the ivory folks in the same way that we go after those might be effective. Do you think it would be?
I think it will be. I think those parts of governments, whether here in the United States, Europe, or Asia, that work on money laundering, transnational crime, stopping these criminal syndicates who are acting with impunity, the risk for ivory trade is much lower than the risk for dealing in drugs. If governments pull together using Interpol, et cetera, I think they can crack down on this. We need to stop the syndicates, the middlemen, the traffickers. It's not one or two poachers in a village somewhere. These are people making millions and millions of dollars off the slaughter of elephants.
Well, and we look at these images behind us. That's the start of this. The end result, though, is the consumer. Is there a message you'd want to send to them?
Don't buy ivory. Period. Just don't buy ivory. Just don't do it. And tell your governments as well to crack down and close the domestic markets. And that's all it takes. If people stop buying ivory, both here in the United States and in China, this will stop.
All right, Susan, thanks so much. Always a pleasure talking to you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
We'll have you